Good evening. We're interrupting regular programming to bring you a developing story that could change the course of the Middle East in the coming weeks. Right now, at this very moment, President Trump is issuing direct threats to Iran about massive new military strikes, and military officials are confirming this isn't rhetoric. This is real. Here's why you need to pay attention. We're on day 3 of active warfare between the United States, Israel, and Iran. American soldiers are already dead. Over 2,000 military targets have been destroyed. Iran's supreme leader is gone, and the president just doubled down, saying larger strikes are coming if Iran doesn't back down. This isn't speculation about what might happen. This is what's actually happening right now, and the stakes just got significantly higher. If you've been following this conflict loosely, thinking it might stay contained, think again. The Trump administration is signalling this is far from over. The question isn't whether more strikes are coming. The question is, how much larger will they get? And what will Iran do in response? Because that answer determines whether we're looking at a contained military campaign or a regional war that pulls in more countries and more allies. This is the story that matters most today. And we're breaking down exactly what Trump just said, what it means, and what comes next. Let's start with what just happened. President Trump made explicit statements warning Iran about larger strikes coming if the situation isn't resolved. This is significant because it's not ambiguous. It's not diplomatic language. It's a direct public threat. Here's the context. The initial US-Israeli campaign that began Saturday, February 28th, involved over 2,000 strikes targeting Iranian air defenses, nuclear facilities, and military infrastructure. That was the opening move. But Trump is now signalling that wasn't the full extent of American military power being brought to bear. There's more coming. What makes this different from previous Iran-America tensions is the scale and the speed. We're not talking about sanctions or diplomatic pressure. We're talking about sustained kinetic military operations. Trump stated the campaign was projected to go on for 4 to 5 weeks at the beginning, but emphasized the military has capability to go far longer. Translation: this could expand significantly beyond the initial timeline. Why is Trump making these threats now, on day 3? Military analysts suggest several reasons. First, Iran just fired 150 to 200 ballistic missiles at Israel and approximately 140 at American positions in the region. That retaliation shows Iran isn't backing down, it's escalating. Trump's warning is essentially saying, we see your missiles, we're not impressed, and we have much more firepower to unleash. Second, the Trump administration appears to be sending a message to both Iran's government and the international community that America is in this for the long haul. By publicly stating larger strikes are possible, Trump is trying to deter further Iranian retaliation. It's psychological warfare combined with military threat. But here's the danger in that strategy. When you publicly threaten larger strikes, you're backing yourself into a corner. If Iran responds again, Trump has to follow through, or he loses credibility. That's how conflicts spiral. Each side makes a threat, the other side responds, and suddenly you're in an escalation ladder that's hard to climb back down from. The reactions have been swift. Markets are reacting to the uncertainty. Oil prices have surged because traders are pricing in the possibility of an even larger conflict disrupting global energy supplies. American allies in the Gulf are nervous. Iran is preparing for more attacks. And we're watching in real time as a military campaign that began with surprise and precision is now becoming a sustained, escalating conflict. Now, let's talk about something that makes this personal. American soldiers are dead. 4 US service members were killed when an incoming Iranian missile struck a tactical operations center in Kuwait over the weekend. These are the first confirmed American combat deaths of this conflict. That matters enormously for several reasons. First, it brings the war home. Until Americans start dying, many people view foreign conflicts as abstract news stories. But when your military is suffering casualties, it becomes real. Families are grieving. Congress is paying closer attention. The American public's tolerance for this conflict just got tested. Second, it validates Iran's willingness to strike back. Iran didn't just launch symbolic attacks. They actually killed American personnel. That demonstrates they have the capability to inflict real damage on US forces in the region. It's not a toothless retaliation. Third, it guarantees American escalation. When American soldiers are killed, the political pressure to respond is enormous. Trump can't absorb those losses without a strong counterstrike. So those 4 deaths essentially guarantee more Iranian targets will be hit in the coming days. Beyond the Americans, the human toll is significant across the board. The Iranian Red Crescent Society reports at least 555 people killed in Iran so far from the US-Israeli campaign. Over 130 are wounded. In Israel, at least 28 people are dead, mostly civilians. Over 3,200 Israelis are hospitalized with injuries. When you add in the broader regional impact, Lebanese civilians caught in the crossfire, Gulf region explosions, we're talking about thousands of people affected in just 72 hours. This is the cost of war that the headlines sometimes gloss over. Behind every casualty statistic is a person, a family, a life interrupted. And we're only on day 3. If this campaign continues for 4 to 5 weeks as planned, those numbers could multiply dramatically. Here's what should concern you most. This conflict isn't staying isolated between the US, Israel, and Iran. It's expanding. The war is now actively involving Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's affecting the Gulf region, where explosions have been reported in Dubai, and American allies are being pulled into the crossfire. Why does that matter? Because regional conflicts tend to spiral. When you have multiple players with different interests all engaging militarily, you increase the risk of miscalculation. One side does something unexpected, another side overreacts, and suddenly you have a much larger war than anyone intended. The economic stakes are massive. Qatar has halted LNG production. That's liquefied natural gas that global markets depend on. Oil prices are surging. Defence stocks are gaining because investors believe this conflict will lead to sustained increased military spending. But for regular people, this translates to higher energy costs, more expensive goods shipped across oceans, and broader economic uncertainty. There's also the question of whether this stays a US-Israel versus Iran conflict, or whether it becomes something bigger. Trump hasn't ruled out ground troops in Iran. Think about that for a second. We're potentially talking about American soldiers invading Iranian territory. That would be a massive escalation from the current air campaign. International reaction is one of alarm. This is the first time in decades that a major world power is directly, openly waging large-scale war against another major power without the cover of proxy warfare or sanctions. It's a stark shift in how international conflict is being conducted. Here's the critical question. Will China and Russia stay on the sidelines? Will other Middle Eastern powers get pulled in? Will this remain a contained conflict between specific actors, or does it become something broader? Those answers determine whether we're looking at weeks of military operations or the beginning of a much larger regional war. So, what should you expect in the coming weeks? Based on what administration officials are saying, here's the likely trajectory. Week 1, where we are now. Continued airstrikes targeting Iranian military and nuclear capabilities. More Iranian retaliation attempts. Escalating rhetoric from both sides. American and allied casualties mounting slowly. Weeks 2 through 5. Intensification of the air campaign, possible expansion into new target sets. Strategic facilities being systematically degraded. Iran attempting to inflict maximum damage on American and Israeli assets while absorbing losses. The unknown. Whether ground troops get deployed, whether other regional actors escalate, whether diplomatic off-ramps emerge, or whether this becomes a grinding, sustained conflict. Trump's statement about capability to go far longer suggests if necessary, this could extend beyond 5 weeks. That means we're potentially looking at a summer of sustained military operations in the Middle East. What you need to watch: any sign of diplomatic negotiations, any indication that either side is willing to accept a ceasefire, any major Iranian counterattacks that might force Trump to make good on his threat of larger strikes, any American casualties that spike, which could shift domestic political pressure, and watch global energy markets. They're the real-time indicator of how severe traders think this conflict will become. We are witnessing a genuine inflection point in Middle East conflict and American foreign policy. This isn't a drill. This isn't posturing. American soldiers are dying. Thousands of targets are being destroyed. And the Trump administration is signaling this is just the beginning. The coming weeks will determine whether this stays contained or spirals into something dramatically larger. This is the story that will dominate headlines, affect global markets, and shape international relations for years to come. Stay with us for breaking updates. This is developing in real time, and we'll bring you the latest as this situation evolves.